Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Cllr Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
And a very good morning to you all. Ronan Berry here, and it's time for your Saturday View on Midlands 103. If you want to join this morning's conversation, 083 3010 103 is a text and WhatsApp number, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota on the Arden Road in Tullamore, the home of Offaly's top-selling car brand. Also, you can give us a call on 0818 300 103. And what would we like your opinion on today? Well, very, very shortly we're going to hear from somebody who is in Lebanon at present, and we'll get an update on what it's like for ordinary citizens living in that country, given what has been unfolding there over the past 2 months in particular. But also, you would have heard during the week as well, the government announced a plan to develop a significant expansion to the Lissy Woolen Direct Provision Centre in Athlone, with potentially housing up to 1,000 international protection applicants. It has been greeted with in many different ways across the Midlands in the past couple of days. We're going to get the latest from Athlone on that from a member of the council there, and just see what the plan is, when the expansion is likely to happen, how quickly it might increase, and try to get a sense of what the people on the ground, what they're thinking and what their view on that facility is. Again, if you want to join that conversation, 083 3010 103, 0818 300 103. We'll also hear about why a meeting was held, and it involved the CEO of the Irish League of Credit Unions, and it was held in Westmeath recently, and it was to highlight the restrictions put on credit unions when it comes to certain lendings, and particularly around mortgages, and also look at the opportunities that could be there within the credit union sector to give people more access to more money, more credit as well, and maybe go outside of the traditional schemes and, give people good value loans in order to do whatever it might be. Take holidays, do work around the house, buy some land, help at a deposit house, whatever it might be. So we'll look at where the opportunities lie there and what might have come from that meeting earlier this week. But as I said, before all that, it's very hard to escape what's happening in the Middle East at present. It is often front and centre in our news, and this morning's headlines, this morning's papers continue that story, really. And we see headlines such as on the Irish Times as well: no sirens, no warning as airstrikes hit. That's on the front of the Irish Times today. Another agency reporting that Hezbollah fires at Israel as war rages on Yom Kippur, of course, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Hezbollah has said it has launched a salvo of missiles at an Israeli military base as troops battled militants in Lebanon and Gaza on what is deemed to be the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. If we flick through any of today's papers, the broadsheets, the tabloids, etc., it is featuring there extensively on the front pages and inside too. And I'll look at what's been happening there. Taoiseach Simon Harris has said that Israel must stop firing on UNIFIL troops serving in southern Lebanon. His comments come after Israeli troops fired on the headquarters of UN peacekeepers in the country, injuring peacekeepers for a second time in as many days. UNIFIL's Nakura headquarters was affected by explosions for the second time in the past 48 hours. Earlier, Minister for Defence and Taoiseach Micheál Martin said that the news that UNIFIL troops in Nakura were again fired upon by Israel was reckless and intimidatory. Israel stated its aim is to push Hezbollah fighters back from the border and return 60,000 displaced Israelis to their homes in the north of the country. And now, in the wake of the Hamas-led attacks on Israel on October the 7th last year, and Israel's retaliatory bombardment of Gaza, Hezbollah intensified rocket attacks on Israeli territories in solidarity, they said, with the Palestinians. And Israel, of course, retaliated with airstrikes on Lebanon, explosive pager attacks on Hezbollah operatives in the past couple of weeks, and then the ground incursion, killing hundreds of Lebanese and displacing more than 1 million people at this point as well. And Israeli officials have repeatedly criticised UNIFIL for failing to prevent Hezbollah activity in the border region, saying Israel had been forced to take matters into its own hands. So we see this playing out constantly. All sides, different opinions, huge discussion and debate, even at UN level. What can happen? Are certain people acting with impunity? How can certain, laws and stuff be enforced? Why isn't this being done? Why doesn't this side do that? But let's get a perspective from somebody who's actually there, who's actually in Lebanon at present. What is it like to be there? Well, Marwan Ibrahim is a Lebanese national and Irish passport holder, having lived in the Irish Midlands for decades, and at one stage running the Wilton restaurant in Portarlington. And although no longer resident in Ireland, he returned to Lebanon 2.5 months ago to take his elderly parents from South Lebanon to a safer location in Beirut. Good morning, Marwan. Here in the Midlands, we're all very familiar with events in the Middle East, and the Israelis turning their focus on Lebanon recently and Hezbollah from the beginning of October. Your parents' home is quite close to the southern border with Israel. What was it like there when the first attacks occurred?
Oh, yes. It was like a Hollywood movie, war movie, I mean. Oh, my God. The bombing all around us. Big, huge bombs, F-16s, F-35s, everything they used.
Was it sudden? I mean, it was widely expected there was going to be maybe a ground assault launch, certainly an aerial assault too. What was it like when it first started for you, and how did you react?
You see, I've survived here in Lebanon 3 Israel-Lebanon wars. They always say we attacked them. This never happened. We have never, ever attacked North Palestinian land. If we did anything, we did it in Lebanese occupied land. And that's fact. Never, ever attacked Palestinian occupied land. I don't want to say Israel because, in my opinion, they're not the real people of the land. I will say I survived 3 wars. And I know from my experience, since 2006, Israel would never we never thought they would attempt to come into Lebanon as they're trying to do now, right? Because they were slaughtered in Lebanon. They lost so many tanks, so many men, but they never admit what the losses are until our people show the videos and we see. Now, they've been trying to come into Lebanon these past 3 weeks. They've been trying every day, like 5-6 times during the night, during the day, all the time. Especially the biggest thing is today. Now, before I tell you about today, let me tell you something. Israel has been going on a rampage because they cannot get the Hezbollah fighters. They cannot get them. They cannot fight them. Even they themselves, I see TikTok things, soldiers talking, and they're saying, oh, where are they? We don't see them. They're killing us. They're shooting at us. They're like ghosts. We don't know where they are. We cannot see them. You know, so they come back with revenge and they bomb whole lots of blocks and buildings, people in them. They don't give a damn. And then when any emergency services come to see for the rescue, to see if there's any living people still injured, dead, whatever, even the drones that are flying 24/7 over Lebanon and southern Beirut and they bomb them too. They kill them so nobody can reach to help the injured. That is terribly inhumane against any human rights or human law, you know?
Absolutely.
But anyway,
we're seeing that on our TV screens, unfortunately, and as you say, across social media as well, that mass devastation and the scale of the damage that's been done. For yourself then, you obviously had to flee southern Lebanon. Did you move further north?
We did indeed. We flee. We ran away with my parents, 2 old people, my sister and her family, 2 cars, and coming on the road. As we passed a certain area on the main road, 10 minutes later, we see it on the news that they bombed the main road, made a big crater in it so nobody could pass. We were lucky we made it through.
Wow.
And we're in Beirut at the moment. You know,
and your
it's
parents,
unbelievable.
As you said, your parents are quite elderly. How did they react? Did they manage the journey okay? It has to be very stressful for them.
They are calm. They're really calm because they're used to these wars. I mean, it's not our first tango, as you say. I lived 3 wars. They lived like maybe 7 wars with Israel before. So it's a fact. We're used to them. We know how inhumane they are. They just go on a killing and destruction rampage all the time.
And how long do you think this is going to go on for? And is there any potential end in sight? And indeed, what would bring about an end to this, do you think?
Let me explain a little bit something about it, right? It's always been, if you say anything, they call you anti-Semitic, right? You know that. You're anti-Semitic and you're persecuted and all this and that. I mean, I don't know where they come up with this idea. We are the Semitic people. If you check the dictionary or whatever, you will see Semitic is the people that came from the East. It's not people who came from Poland and Germany and Britain and Russia and Ukraine. No, these are not Semitic. These are called Ashkenaz. I don't know how they call themselves Semitic. I don't understand it. We are not against ourselves. We are Semitic people. We are the Semitic race, the original people here. The Palestinians are, the Jordanians are, the Syrians are, the Iraqis are, you know. Our history go way far beyond. We are the Phoenician, original people of the land, Phoenicians. And there you go. But But what we are against is Zionism. Zionism is the cancer of this world. And the only way to be peace in the world is to get rid of this cancer. And that's it. Zionism is a cancer. They cannot live and let live. They will never accept that. You know, they will never accept it. They want everything for themselves. The thing is, when they get, like 2006, they got a hell of a beating, and then they went to the UN and they asked the UN to take a resolution, say, please stop us, please stop us. But and that's the same thing is going to happen, and I hope that's going to happen soon. They're going to start screaming, say, please help us, please help us.
When you use a term to get rid of them, and basically to defeat Zionism, how far does that go then? Is that a full scale push them out of the lands, or is that accepting, maybe as always been before? So the Irish government would always talk about a two-state solution between, say, Israel and Palestine in particular. Is that something that you would see as a potential solution, or no, you just want out?
No, absolutely not. We can live with that. We have Lebanese Jews. My God, we have no problem against Jews. We can live with Jews. We as Muslims believe in Jews big time. We believe in Christianity big time, But they don't want that. They cannot live with anybody else. They cannot. They think they're God. That's it. They're the chosen people, and that's it, which is really arrogant. It's them who cannot live and let live. We accept the two-state solution. Leave our land, occupied land in Lebanon as well. We have no issue with you. But they cannot do that. They have so much greed. They want the whole water of Lebanon. We have 15 rivers, and there's 2 rivers in the south that they want to divert to Israel. Why? They want everything. They actually want the whole of Lebanon and Syria and Iraq. They talk about the land, the promised land is from the Nile to the Euphrates. That's including Egypt, part of Egypt, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and even part of Saudi Arabia, North Saudi Arabia. That's the promised land to them, and that's what they dream to have. And Zionism is the one that's doing it. It's not Jewish. We have nothing, absolutely nothing against Jewish people, man. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think it comes across in your voice. Well, in terms of where you are now, you're close to Beirut. How safe do you feel there? Or do you see the conflict eventually extending and getting closer to you again?
We're only like 5 minutes away from the main bombing in South Beirut is. And South Beirut, right? Sometimes now recently, they've been asking people to evacuate the tall buildings. Yeah. But they hit 5 minutes later. They don't even give you time to leave. They just bomb with the 2,000-pound bomb and brings the whole building down over everybody's head. I mean, that's barbarism.
It's horrific.
You want to tell me these people are people who are looking for peace, who want to live? If they really wanted peace, they wanted to live in peace in the area, they would have given the Palestinians the rights a long time ago, not leave Gaza in 17 years like an open-air prison. Yeah. How did they get strong? Yeah, a year, Gaza is 350 square kilometers, right? 2 million people live in it, right? 2.1 million used to live in it. Take away the dead, be less than 2 million. And they cannot finish them. They used all their might, America's might, Britain's might, French might, German might. All of them are helping them. All of them sending them all these heavy weapons to kill people only. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand these people, how they think, really.
It sounds like it has a long way to run, unfortunately.
Well, I tell you what, they cannot sustain what they're getting now. If it keeps coming like this at them from Lebanon, they will be done in no time. Trust me. They will soon give it a week and they'll be screaming, please stop us. UN, please take a resolution, say we must stop. And America will not use a veto. Then they'll stop. It's America that's protecting them. Whenever there's a resolution in the UN against Israel, America says veto. Israel has the right to defend itself. But defend itself against who? But you're attacking everyone. We don't have the right to defend ourselves. Palestinians don't have the right to defend themselves. They attack Syria. Syria is not at war with them. They attack Syria every day. They bomb in Syria. They have 35s every day.
I know. I said it's an awful situation to be in, and it's kind of it's an absolute pleasure to hear from somebody who has deep connections with the Midlands, as you told us, and is actually living over there at the minute, and very hard to see how this, we know it's a deep-rooted problem that's going on there anyway. Very hard to see where a solution comes from on it. What are your hopes for the future?
I just hope, I tell you, if my hope is, I pray that Zionism will become 10% as nice as Irish people, and it will be like heaven. How's that? How does that sound to you?
Well, that's 10%. That's a big statement, all right. Yeah, but look at that.
If they're only 10% as nice as Irish people, it will be heaven. Trust me.
That's Marwan Ibrahim there expressing his hope for the future there. He's coming to us there from Beirut in Lebanon, having gone back there. He's a Lebanese national with an Irish passport holder too, and his family live around Tullamore still. And he went back over to obviously look after his elderly parents, and he's just speaking about what it's like there when Israel first moved into Lebanon, and kind of gives us a snippet of what life is like too, and I suppose talking about the broader and wider situation there in the Middle East. Let me know what you think. 083 3010 103 is the text and WhatsApp number, or maybe give us a call on 0818 300 103 if you have an opinion on that too. But really kind of giving us a little insight there into the situation that is, I guess, evolving and evolving and every day there. And unfortunately, it's all over the headlines. It's in our papers. It's front and centre on our TV screens. We're covering it on radio because can't really take our eyes off it, and we start looking at the scale of just the devastation on humans, on ordinary humans and civilians, and the amount of people being displaced and looking for help, shelter, protection, food, the basics, separated from loved ones. It's a horrendous situation. Anyway, 083 3010 103, text and WhatsApp number. We'll take a short break. After that, we're going to look at the announcement earlier this week, which the government confirmed they were going to develop a significant centre for accommodating international protection applicants in Lissywollen in Athlone. It's one of 5 centres planned for across the country, and they've indicated that it could house at some point up to 1,000 individuals. So we're going to hear from Cllr John Dolan, a Fine Gael representative on Westmeath County Council, after this quick break. But right now we're on the Midlands. It is just above 7 degrees.
Saturday View on Midlands 103 with thanks to Cllr Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcluneEnergy.com.
Before the break there, we heard from a man, a dual Lebanese and Irish national who is currently in Beirut, having moved his parents from southern Lebanon to a relatively safer zone as well once the Israeli ground invasion started at the beginning of the month. And a few people have texted in as well. Hilda's kind of said, just to be clear, neither the current Israeli government nor Hamas or Hezbollah represent the majority of people. They rule over, and definitely not all, the people who happen to share the religion with them. The current Israeli administration and Hamas are happy for the current state of the region. Hundreds of thousands of people bringing Tel Aviv to a standstill each week is also important to recognise. And that's a really important point. It's fair to raise that within the Israeli government, there's vastly different views on the response, what should be done, what shouldn't be done too. So it absolutely, and thank you for pointing it out, it's an important one that not each group does not represent their entire people. And I think we get a sense of that from Marwan, who I just spoke to there, that, that it's not just them against us or us against them or them versus the others. It's deep-rooted, it's deeply complex, but at the core of it all, there are humans, they are people, and we have to kind of look at that and appreciate that too, and hopefully some form of solution, even be it a temporary one or two, can be brought about. But thank you for your text as well, and thank you for that, Hilda, as well, because it's important. It's never clear-cut, it's never straightforward, it's never simple, and thank you. And keep your text coming in if you want, 083 3010 103, or give us a call, 0818 300 103. Nellie's on the end of the line, and we'll be happy to take your call. But I'm going to head across towards Westmeath now, and you would have seen it in the headlines and heard it on the radio during the week about the announcement from the government and the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth that is planning to establish what has been described as the Midlands Accommodation Centre in Lissywollen in Athlone, which would cater for up to 1,000 applicants eventually. It's been developed by Ministerial Order and which was published recently. And this was announced, kind of brought out on Monday. And during the week, the Integration Minister says he's prioritising progress on the development of the new accommodation centre for asylum seekers in Athlone. The Midlands Accommodation Centre will house up to 1,000 male international protection applicants if at full capacity in tented and modular units. Work is expected to commence on the development soon, with the first of the IPAs set to move within 5 weeks after that. Integration Minister Roger Gorman says engagement with locals has begun.
Over the last 6 months, my department has been focused on progressing the new accommodation strategy that I announced at the end of March and the prioritisation of particular elements of the multi-strand approach it set out. So to date, 5 sites have been licensed to the department. These include Crooksling, River Lodge in Wicklow, Heatherside, Thornton Hall and Lissywollen in Athlone.
Cllr John Dolan is a Fine Gael representative on Westmeath County Council, and John joins me now. Good morning, Cllr Dolan.
Hey, how are you?
Good, John. The kind of community engagement there and engaging with locals that Roger Gorman referred to there, has that been happening?
Geez, Ronan, I have to say, I don't know what's part of community engagement the Minister is talking about, because we got an email on this on Monday, and it's the first that we've been made aware of. And I suppose we've had a chat among ourselves here about this. Like, I mean, it was totally, in my view, we were totally broadsided. This wasn't on the cards, and it's totally unacceptable. I suppose we were recently elected in the local election, and I suppose the first people really should have been contacted was the elected reps to even ask their opinion as to what we thought. But we just got an email, a generic email, to tell us this was happening, which is totally unacceptable.
And as I say, a recent report says it's been developed by Ministerial Order. So in terms of that, therefore, allow them to bypass the local council?
Yeah, but I suppose, just in your clip there, I mean, the Minister said there'd been 6 months engagement. I don't remember any engagement on this. And now maybe I'm missing something that the Minister can fill me in on, but it's totally unacceptable. And I suppose if there had been engagement, we would have had an opportunity to put across our points that the majority of people I've been talking to feel this is totally inappropriate. This is no reflection on any of the people that need international protection, because I suppose it's important to point out that this site has been there for quite a number of years. I know myself and a few of my colleagues would have engaged with the people that are there. A number of people that have come through that are actually resident in Athlone, and some of them might even have their own businesses and are employing people in Athlone. And it's not that we're anti-immigrant, but bringing in 1,000 male people, no matter where they're from, we don't know whether they're vetted, we don't know what the story is. There's a creche nearby, there's educational facilities nearby. There's a worry. Plus, you're increasing the population of Athlone by an immediate 5%. So where are the services going to come from? Who's going to get doctors? You can't get doctors as they are. So there's big worry in the locality. I've been contacted by a number of people. And I suppose it's a little bit disingenuous to an elected public rep that you haven't been consulted. And if the Minister is given that impression that there's been 6 months consultation, I definitely wasn't consulted on it. So I think really this needs to be given a whole new rethink as to what they're going to do here. Because I just don't think the site can cope with it.
Have you already sought any further clarification, even around the scale of the rollout and when, they've said at one point it could house up to 1,000 people. Have you looked to see when that peak number might actually be realised?
Yes, I suppose. Look, we had a meeting ourselves, our local councillors, and I suppose we're looking to meet a representative from the department to clarify what they envisage. Now, this should have happened running before. Like when they were thinking about this, the funny part about this is, as soon as the email was sent out, like Tuesday morning, there was work going on. So, like that was all arranged in advance. So, like this didn't just happen. You don't, as you know, if you're trying to get work done in your own place, you don't just get workers and materials just like that. This was all arranged. So last minute after lunch on Monday, the email was sent out, and on Tuesday morning they were started working. So that is really smacks of really, taking us for granted at local level. I think it's not acceptable, and as a public rep, it's definitely disingenuous to us.
The government or the department have said that maybe up to 100 or 150 tents are expected to be established, and they've called them high-performance tents to ultimately be replaced by modular units. It does go on to say a feasibility study would need to be carried out should plans for modular accommodation progress, and we all know in the past week or two modular accommodation came very much into the news because we discovered that the cost of building modular units to house Ukrainians was actually more ultimately than building a bricks and mortar house. So there's a long way to go with this yet. But they're talking about an 11-acre portion of the existing accommodation centre site in Lissywoolen. So it's a substantial development. Have you any concerns about the actual site and its ability then to house that number of people eventually?
Yeah, I would have, and as I said, this is no reflection on the people that are seeking refuge, but I have, because you're bringing 1,000 males, and they've said they've stated this. Like, I know there was often rumours before, but they've stated that they're visiting 1,000 male people coming here. So, with the best will in the world, you have 1,000 males being put into a site where there's, anyone that knows the site knows that it's adjacent to the Department of Education, but it's also adjacent to a creche. It's adjacent to a national school. And that's no reflection on anyone that's going in there, but there's always worries there. And I mean, the fact that we've been only told this now, that heightens your anxiety as to what way they're dealing with this. I mean, if you're open with people, you'll bring people with you and you can explain things to them. But those people contacted me and I hadn't answers for them because we hadn't been told. So that's totally unacceptable. And I suppose they really need to go back and have a rethink about this from day one. There has been quite a number of people there already, and I have no issue. I know quite a number of people have been to that centre personally, and they're friends of mine, and they're actually contributing to the economy of Athlone, and it's great the way they've progressed. But this is wrong, and I think it has to be called out as wrong, and they've gone the wrong way about it, and I think they need to just take a breath and do what they said they've been doing for 6 months, which they haven't been. They need to engage with people.
Is it? I mean, in the recent local elections, there were one or two candidates around the Midlands who had people who have come through a direct provision centre. You know, some people maybe as far back as 19, 20 years ago. And as we said, that site in Lissywoolen has been there for 24 years now. And as you say, is that a fear though too? Maybe are people looking at? Are you looking at kind of going, right, that's 1,000 people. Do you need clarity on, is it a short-term stop and then they will be moved somewhere else, or is there going to be a huge amount of people to integrate into it? You mentioned it'll have a significant impact on the population of the town.
Yeah, and I suppose, I suppose, Ron, that's the questions that we have, because this has all been just landed, I suppose, on everybody really. And I suppose that the point is that you need that sort of information. I mean, what is their plans? I mean, really, they should have come to us a number of months ago to say, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? You're on the ground locally. You know how that site has operated for 24 years. You know the people that are coming through it. You're the people on the ground. What do you think? But that didn't happen. And I suppose that's why people's backs are up about this. So I think they need to, and I can tell you, I passed out by that site yesterday. There was machinery working away. They're going ahead full belt. So we don't know what stage they're bringing in people, when the first people will be in, how many they're going to bring in, what their plans are. I mean, we're told that the people will be free to go in and out of the site. There will be concerns about that. So I suppose we just need to get the baseline as to what their plans are for it, what their plans are for the people that's going in. Are they going to be vetted? What do they know about the people that are going in there? These are all relevant questions. And if the questions are that people are fine with that. We've had those people. We've had people there, as you say, for 24 years. We're used to it. We know the people, and we know the people who were genuine people, because a lot of them have ended up living in Athlone. So I suppose I was also contacted by people that are also on that site that were told that they will have to move, that they're worried of where they're going to go. So I suppose, you have all this going on, and it's all in a vacuum where there's no information. And as you know, when it's a vacuum of information, that's when fake news starts. And I suppose what the department need to do is stall what they're doing, come and talk to people and answer the questions that people genuinely have. And the people of Athlone are decent people. they understand what it's like, but I mean, they need answers to questions that they have, and I think they're relevant questions, and they're entitled to ask those questions.
Do you think, I suppose, the government this year, they came out and said they had changed kind of the strategy and tightened up on, people coming into the country without their documents, particularly people maybe who had shredded or lost documents or disposed of them on route to Ireland as well. Are you happy that the new measures in place or the tightening of those measures will in turn, bring some control on the people who may be coming to Lissywoolen?
Well, you would hope so, Ronan, but I suppose my personal opinion on that is that to get on a flight or a boat to come to Ireland, you had to have a document. So if you lose your document en route, you should go straight back to where you came from. Because, what are you hiding if your documents, as you know, and we all know, we've all flown and went to sail or whatever to go from one country to the other, you won't get on without your passport. So if your passport mysteriously disappears while you're en route, I think you should go back to where you know where they came from, so go back to where they came from. I think that should be, I think there should be no question about that, because I don't think anyone could argue with that. So that's my own personal opinion, that I know there's probably laws there I'm no lawyer, but that's my personal opinion. If a person lands with no documents, they know the flight they came on to go back on that flight, to go back on the return flight. You see the problems with Australia and New Zealand, and that's what happens there. So that's my personal opinion of what should happen.
Yeah, it's all about finding that right balance and doing what is the right thing, and then doing it correctly and making sure. But I think for yourself, it's quite obvious the lack of information. As you said, this is kind of happening in a vacuum. Doesn't seem ideal from a council perspective as well. But John Dolan, thank you so much for coming on this morning, and undoubtedly we'll hear more on that next week as well. I have got a text message in there from a kind of a senior person working in the health sector in the country, and they've said, just to kind of point out that we can't get accommodation for our nurses and doctors in the country at present, and therefore we cannot provide proper humane services to our population. Hence, whether high performance or not, are a step away from homelessness. So interesting perspective on that too, that we also need to make sure we have proper accommodation for to deliver the services for the entire community, and start on that basis as well. But plenty of texts coming in, and we'll return to some of those as well as we go to the show. But if they take a quick break now, after I'll be joined by Longford Westmeath TD Robert Troy, and we'll have a quick chat about that centre in Lissywoolen. But he's also here to talk about a meeting that was arranged during the week with the CEO of the League of Credit Unions of Ireland as well, to look at how the credit unions can expand their offering and really support people, particularly people looking at buying houses or getting home loans to upgrade houses, and all those things that have become a challenge for people over the last couple of years with the cost of living rising and everything else. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with that in just a couple of moments.
Saturday View on Midlands 103, with thanks to Longford Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LongfordEnergy.com.
Robert Troy is a Fianna Fáil TD for Longford Westmeath, and he joins me on the phone now. Now, he's here to talk initially about, or originally about the meeting that was held recently and brought about by him with the CEO of the Irish League of Credit Unions and some of the local credit union representatives as well, to really look at how the credit union can expand its offering too, and maybe look at some of the rules and restrictions put on credit unions for lending, and how that can unlock better access to funds and loans for local people. And that we'll come back to that now in just a short moment. But I'm sure Deputy Troy has been listening to John Dolan there speaking about the Lissywoolen refugee centre. How aware were you of the plans, Deputy Troy?
Well, we got a formal notification on the Monday at the exact same time as all local representatives. The email was sent out as a joint email to the Oireachtas members and the local authority members. I was given the heads up, for want of a better word, to say to be expecting an email on Monday. Someone from the department rang me because there was some information on some social media channels. When I pressed during that call for further clarity, they said they weren't in a position to do so, but they would inform us all on Monday morning. I think I understand that the local authority members are meeting with the community engagement team from the department next Monday morning at 10:30 in Athlone, and there will be an opportunity for local politicians to raise some questions that Councillor Dolan has just raised with you on air with the community engagement team. I suppose I'm on record for over 18 months now, and if anyone wants to look back on my speeches in the Dáil, calling on the government to speed up the processing time for people who are seeking international protection. I think the Department of Justice has been very slow in processing these applications. Applications need to be done much more efficiently so we can determine who has a legitimate claim to asylum or who is seeking asylum based on economic reasons. Obviously, people on economic reasons will be returned to the country they came from, and those who have legitimate asylum should have their applications processed in a timely fashion so that they can start contributing to society, working in society, and providing for themselves. And I think that is the very basic reforms that is needed. It has improved, without doubt, over the last number of months, but it needs to get much more efficient.
I think it's the numbers behind it as well that it was highlighted. And even John pointed out there that, you know, it's stated from the department that it could be all males, it could be up to 1,000 at some point as well. And that, you know, understandably, they're like trigger words, let's be honest with people, over the past couple of years. And, you know, you can see why people want more clarity on this as well. But do we know, does a development like that require planning permission? And ultimately, is it managed then by a third party, independent, commercial organisation?
So this is done by Ministerial Order, which means it's exempt from planning, so it doesn't go through the normal planning process. So that's number one. And then I'm not actually, to be honest, sure who's going to be charged with the responsibility of running this. It may be a continuation of the company that is running Lissie-Woolen. And I think, to be fair, and John Dolan said this a moment ago, if I heard him correctly, the people who are in Lissie-Woolen are already contributing. Many of them are working in Athlone and further afield. The children are going to school in Athlone, and they have become very much part and parcel of the community in Athlone, and it hasn't been proven to be difficult. So that's the very positive thing to look towards. But I do believe, we can't pigeonhole and say single men are necessarily bad people. They're not. But we do need a better integration. And I think where you have a mix of people, a mixture of age, a mixture of sex, mixture between families and non-families, it leads to a better integration in a system.
I mean, if we were building social housing and designating for just one section of society, people would have concerns, legitimate concerns about it too, and always that balanced or mixed approach clearly works as well. What sort of clarifications will you seek in the Dáil in the coming week?
Well, look, I think number one, we have to find out the time frame, and while they say this can accommodate up to 1,000, my initial information is that won't be utilised. It's putting in place what may be required, so it may not at any one time reach to that numbers. Obviously, the makeup of the persons who are coming, how long will people be there? Is it just going to be a kind of a hub where people transition through while they're having their paperwork processed? What type of time frame can we look towards to have paperwork processed? As I said, so people who have a legitimate claim to asylum, who are fleeing war, persecution and famine, and we always have to remember there are people who are legitimately fleeing for their lives. There are children fleeing, parents bringing children because they're afraid of their lives. That those people will have their applications processed in a timely fashion so that they can. And I've engaged with many people in Lissie-Woolen, I've engaged with people in Colin Barracks, Mullingar, Old Harry's in Kinnegad. So many of them actually don't want to be in centres such as these. They want to work, and they want to be in a position where they can rent their own house with the long-term view of perhaps purchasing a house. And when you have an increase in population, of course, you do have additional demands on services. And it's important when that is happening, that the government acknowledges that and puts in the additional resources to meet with that demand.
Thank you. Well, you're here this morning, Robert, actually to talk about a meeting that you arranged earlier in the week, and it was hosted by North Midlands Credit Union, and you invited down the CEO of the Irish League of Credit Unions, David Malone, and you brought them together to meet the local representatives of the credit unions too. What was the purpose of the meeting?
Well, I suppose, look, one thing I'd say is the credit unions is in the top brand in terms of the most reputable organisation in Ireland, based on the 2023 figures. Everybody has huge confidence and trust in their credit union. 54% of all personal lending in Ireland is done through credit unions. So that's €6 billion is there in personal lending through credit unions. So there's very little room for growth on that side of the coin, so to speak, and that shows the trust and the confidence that credit unions have. They're there for people with small loans, funeral loans, going back to college, car loans, and they really are an integral part of the community in which they operate in. But through my engagement with Tom Allen, who's the branch manager for the North Midlands Credit Union Group, it became apparent that they're being restricted in terms of the level of services that they can offer the public. And in particular, we spoke in relation to their ability to offer mortgages. At the moment, they only have 1% of the total mortgage book in Ireland, just 1%, which is approximately €650 million. Now, that has increased over the last 2 years, but it's still a very, very small percentage of the overall mortgage book. And the reason that is because the central bank has draconian lending limits in place. So depending on the size of the credit union will determine how much you can lend. Mortgage lending and business lending is combined again, which is unfair and not the same in the other financial institutions. So a small credit union with about 5,000 members can only do 10 mortgages at any one time. Now, that's not 10 mortgages a year. That's 10 mortgages at any one time. So when one mortgage is paid off, they can go back and do another one.
And the Irish League of Credit Unions' view in that then is it's prohibiting competition.
It's totally preventing competition. And when you see, as I said, how credit unions are ranking from a reputational perspective, they're the number one reputable organisation in Ireland. That shows people trust the credit unions. That shows people would prefer to be dealing with credit unions, and they are being prevented from being able to facilitate more mortgages. At a time when we're encouraging home ownership, and we know that the government has introduced many very positive measures in terms of assisting people buy their own home, you know, the derelict house grant, the help to buy scheme, the shared equity schemes, all really good schemes. And the credit union is sitting on vast sums of money, willing, ready and able to lend more money to mortgages, but we do need to see a shift in the criteria that's set down by the central bank. That really was the purpose of the meeting. It was a very positive meeting. I've already raised this with colleagues in my party, and we continue to raise it because with small effort, there could be an opportunity to support more people who already have good time and confidence in the credit union avail of mortgages through the credit union.
Thank you for that, Deputy Troy. I suppose the big thing is if an election happened to be called next week as well, the time window will be tight to get stuff through, but who knows, maybe we'll go till February. But thank you for that this morning. I'm sure you won't declare anything on air anyway.
I wish I knew, Ronan.
Robert Troy, thank you so much for that. Robert Troy, of course, is a Fianna Fáil TD for Longford, Westmeath. And before I finish up this morning, I'm just going to go through one or two texts that came in, and particularly in response to that first item I had, where we're speaking to a Lebanese and Irish passport holder who's currently in Beirut looking after his elderly parents as well. And person is texting to say, it's sad to hear that Zionism is considered to be a cancer. It says Zionism represents the historical search for the Jewish home. 6 million Jews were killed in Europe during the Second World War, sowing the seeds of Zionism. Many more persecuted, and so on. Do the Jewish people not have some right to protect themselves in Israel? This does not justify the war in Gaza or Lebanon, but to say Zionism is a cancer, it seems an extreme view. Well, this is Saturday View, so we invite people on They can give their view, their expression. We also open the phone lines there, the text lines for people. So thank you for coming in on that. As I say, we're just trying to bring opinions, perspectives, and as we say, it's a vastly deep, complex situation in the Middle East, and maybe something that in snippets over the coming weeks and months we might bring the various angles in from all sides, even within the same countries, the same faiths, the same religions, just to try and get a sense of what's happening, because again, it affects so many Irish people and Irish nationals. But thank you for your texts as well. Thank you to everybody who has texted in this morning and expressing your opinions on all we've been talking about. Undoubtedly there's more to come on those stories on Midlands Today with Will Faulkner from Monday. Time for me though to vacate the hot seat again. Lorraine McCormick is coming up very shortly with Feel Good Saturday. I'll talk to you all on Taking Care of Business next Tuesday evening. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Talk to you all soon.
Saturday View, with thanks to Cllr Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. Longcloonenergy.com. Midlands 103.